I still remember the morning I made the decision that changed everything. The sun was rising over the lake behind my house, painting the water in shades of gold and orange. It should have been a peaceful moment. After all, I was retired. I had worked for more than 4 decades, raised a family, paid my taxes, and finally reached the stage of life I had dreamed about since my 20s. But instead of feeling free, I felt worried. Every morning began the same way. I would sit at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee and stare at my bank account, wondering how long my savings would last. Retirement was supposed to be the reward after a lifetime of hard work. Instead, it felt like a countdown clock. The cost of groceries kept rising. Property taxes seemed to increase every year. Utility bills climbed higher than expected. Insurance premiums became more expensive. Even simple things like dining out or filling the gas tank felt noticeably different than they had just a few years earlier. The numbers didn't lie. I wasn't running out of money immediately, but I could see the future approaching like a storm on the horizon. If I continued spending the way I was, my retirement fund would shrink much faster than I had planned. That realization frightened me. Many retirees never talk openly about money struggles. Pride often gets in the way. We spend years trying to appear successful, so admitting financial anxiety can feel embarrassing. But the truth is that millions of retirees quietly lie awake at night asking themselves the same questions. What if I live longer than expected? What if medical expenses increase? What if inflation keeps rising? What happens if my savings aren't enough? I ask myself those questions every single day. Then one afternoon, something happened that completely changed my perspective. I was having lunch with an old friend named Richard. Richard and I had retired around the same time. We worked in different industries, but our financial situations were surprisingly similar. Yet there was one major difference. Richard looked relaxed. He wasn't constantly stressed. He wasn't worried about every dollar. He wasn't checking his investment accounts 10 times a day. In fact, he seemed happier than he'd been during our working years. Eventually, I asked him the question that had been bothering me all afternoon. Richard, what are you doing differently? He smiled. Then he shared a retirement decision that would eventually save me thousands of dollars every year. A decision so simple that I couldn't believe I hadn't considered before. Richard told me he had stopped trying to maintain the same lifestyle he had during his highest earning years. At first, that sounded obvious. But the more he explained, the more it made sense. For decades, many of us build lives around our careers. We buy bigger homes because our income increases. We accumulate possessions because we can afford them. We pay for conveniences because our time becomes more valuable. Then retirement arrives. The income changes, but the lifestyle often doesn't. Richard realized he was spending money maintaining a life that no longer matched his actual needs. So he made a bold choice. He downsized, not because he was forced to, not because he was struggling, but because he wanted freedom. That single decision transformed his finances, and eventually, it transformed mine as well. For years, I lived alone in a house that was much larger than necessary. My children had grown up and moved away. Several bedrooms sat empty. Entire sections of the house were rarely used. Yet I continued paying for everything. Higher utility bills, higher maintenance costs, higher insurance premiums, higher property taxes, more repairs, more cleaning, more stress. The house that once represented success had quietly become one of my biggest financial burdens. The more I thought about it, the more I realized Richard was right. I wasn't paying for a home. I was paying for space I no longer needed. That realization wasn't easy. My house held memories, birthday celebrations, holiday dinners, family gatherings. The walls seemed to contain decades of laughter. The idea of leaving felt like saying goodbye to a chapter of my life, and that hurt. For months I resisted. I found excuses. I'll wait another year. The market might improve. What if the grandchildren visit more often? But deep down, I knew I was avoiding the truth. Eventually, I sat down and calculated exactly how much the house cost me every year. The result shocked me. When I added property taxes, insurance, maintenance, repairs, utilities, lawn care, and miscellaneous expenses, the total was far higher than I had imagined. thousands and thousands of dollars. Money that could have been used for travel, experiences, emergency savings, or simply greater peace of mind. That was the moment everything changed. I made the decision. I would downsize. The process wasn't easy. Sorting through decades of belongings felt emotional. Every box seemed connected to a memory. Old photographs, children's artwork, holiday decorations, letters from loved ones. Each item carried a story. There were moments when I sat on the floor holding an old photo album, completely overwhelmed by memories. I laughed. I cried. Sometimes I did both at the same time. But something unexpected happened. As I let go of possessions, I felt lighter. I began realizing that memories don't live inside objects. They live inside us. The people I loved weren't trapped inside the walls of that house. The experiences remained part of me regardless of where I lived. When I finally moved into a smaller home, I expected sadness. Instead, I felt relief. A tremendous sense of relief. My expenses dropped immediately. Utility bills decreased. Maintenance costs fell dramatically. Insurance became more affordable. Property taxes were lower. The savings added up faster than I expected. Within the first year alone, I saved thousands of dollars. But the financial benefit was only part of the story. The emotional benefit was even greater. I spent less time worrying, less time cleaning, less time managing repairs, less time maintaining things, and more time actually living. For the first time in years, retirement felt like freedom. With the money I saved, I began doing something I had postponed for far too long. I started traveling. Nothing extravagant, nothing luxurious, just meaningful journeys. I visited coastal towns I had always wanted to see. I explored national parks. I took scenic train rides. I wandered through historic communities. I sat beside oceans, lakes, rivers, and mountains. Each trip reminded me of something important. Experiences create lasting happiness far more than possessions do. The memories I gained from traveling became far more valuable than the extra square footage I had once been paying to maintain. One afternoon, while sitting on a bench overlooking the ocean, I met a retired couple celebrating their 45th wedding anniversary. We spent hours talking. They shared a piece of wisdom I will never forget. They said many retirees spend years protecting their money but forget to enjoy their lives. That sentence stayed with me. Of course, financial responsibility matters. Planning matters. Saving matters. Being prepared matters. But retirement is not only about preserving wealth. It's also about using your resources wisely to create meaningful experiences and lasting memories. Many people reach retirement with a simple goal: to survive financially. But I believe there's a better goal: to thrive, to wake up excited about the day ahead, to spend time with people who matter, to explore new places, to learn new things, to create moments worth remembering. The decision to downsize helped me do exactly that. Today, when friends ask me for retirement advice, I share several lessons I learned through this journey. First, be honest about your expenses. Many retirees underestimate how much money quietly disappears through unnecessary costs. Track everything. The numbers may reveal opportunities you never noticed. Second, don't confuse possessions with happiness. A larger house, extra storage, or more belongings do not automatically create a better life. Often they create additional responsibilities. Third, focus on flexibility. Financial freedom isn't always about having more money. Sometimes it's about reducing the amount of money you need. Fourth, prioritize experiences. Travel, friendships, family gatherings, hobbies, and personal growth often provide deeper satisfaction than material things. Fifth, make decisions based on your current life rather than your past life. Many retirees continue maintaining lifestyles designed for a completely different stage of life. Your needs change, your priorities change, and that's perfectly okay. Most importantly, remember that retirement is not the end of your story. It's the beginning of a new chapter, a chapter filled with possibilities, a chapter where your time becomes your own, a chapter where wisdom becomes one of your greatest assets. Looking back now, I realized a decision that saved me thousands of dollars every year wasn't really about money. It was about freedom. Freedom from unnecessary expenses. freedom from constant worry, freedom from maintaining things that no longer serve my life, freedom to travel, freedom to explore, freedom to focus on what truly mattered. That single retirement decision transformed not only my finances, but also my happiness. And if you're approaching retirement or already living it, I encourage you to ask yourself one simple question. Am I paying for the life I truly want? Or am I paying for a life I no longer need? The answer may change everything. Because sometimes the smartest financial decision isn't finding a way to earn more. Sometimes it's finding the courage to simplify. And in my case, that one choice saved me thousands every year, gave me peace of mind, and opened the door to the most fulfilling years of my life. Retirement didn't become wonderful because I had more money. It became wonderful because I finally learned how to use my money to support the life I genuinely wanted. And that lesson was worth far more than the dollars I saved.